Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Artorigold, and this is my undefeated Kinemon deck that I have won several different tournaments with. Most recently, I actually even got a prize card, which was the pre-release Smoker card that has Winner on it, which is a really tough tournament to win, and it ended up being a Kinemon mirror match for the finals. This is the deck list right here, and I'm going to go over my tech picks pretty briefly, even go over some other options that I have right here that maybe you could try in your own version depending on your playstyle. So let's go ahead and talk about the deck. I like to have 25 Supernovas and 25 Wano. The only reason why it says 26 is because the leader is counted in this. However, I like this ratio because it's perfectly balanced for my Bonnie and my Momo searches. I was playing a set 1 version of this deck. I would always whiff occasionally on the searches because it was more Supernova heavy. Now I kind of have this nice balance to it because we have basically replaced the 8-cost kid for Odin. A lot of people like this card at 3, however, I run 4 because this card by itself wins you the game. It just wins you the game. If you can play it on curve, or if you can drop it for 7 with your leader effect, it is so amazing. So as you know, on KO, you can get a Wano card that has a cost of 3 directly from your deck, and you can shuffle afterwards, and that gives you a lot of options. You can play Izo and get his effect on play. You can use Raizo in order to get more value and more draw power if you're low on hand size, or of course, what you should probably get 90% of the time is Okiku. However, there are other options. For example, we have Cat Viper, who is a blocker, and the tournament pack Yamato, who's pretty beefy with 5k attack, and also has a decent effect that allows you to rest something, which could come into play against red decks or even against small blockers. For the rest of my deck, I have 4 Killers as my blocker, I have 4 Capones as a blocker. There are some people who like to run Toki as an additional blocker, however, her effect means you have to have Odin or a Yamato in play in order for her to actually be a blocker. So I don't find her all that useful, and I have tried running her at different ratios, but I decided to basically just leave her out completely. Next up, we have Okiku, who is the main star of this deck with the Kinemon effect, and if you go second, you can play Okiku for 2 Dawn, basically on your first turn, even though technically it's the second turn, and then immediately attack and use the effect on the opponent on the second turn. Okiku is amazing. You could also maybe get a Yamato. You basically want a mulligan for these 2 cards in your starting hand each time. Playing a Yamato or a Kiku immediately for 1 less Dawn gives you such an incredible snowball and tempo lead on the opponent that you can basically control the game from there, and it allows you to play your bigger characters such as Odin or X-Drake or the 7-cost kid for free. One of the other big things I guess I can talk about here is that I am running 3 copies of the 7-cost kid. This card does exceptionally well in the mirror match, does pretty okay against red, but it's not very good against blue because it can just get Mihawked to the bottom of the deck, or you can play against navy and they can also blow it up. Red, even though they do have a way to use Otama and Jet Pistol to get rid of this card, that's still 2 cards for your 1 card, so it's still a pretty decent enough value. However, this card is absolutely goated in the mirror match, and to be honest, without it, I might not have won the finals because this card just puts in so much work, and in order for them to attack over the blocker, they generally have to use a lot of Dawn to get their cards up to 7k attack, which means they are not going to be able to develop the board because they are missing so much Dawn in order to get out heavier attacks. And of course, for my events, I have 2 Paradise Waterfalls and 2 Punk Gibsons. The Paradise Waterfall is exceptional when you have the 7-cost kid and the Law, and the Punk Gibson is just insane with the X-Drake. However, I would like to add more events, but there's just not enough room for them, and if you do add more events, they can sometimes clog your hand, and if you have too many, it's just not that good. I am not running 4 of the Raizos, only at 3, because in my opinion, 4 is a bit too slow, and you'd rather put out other cards than Raizo most of the time. If you can get him out on curve or with Kinemon effect, it's not as good as Okiku and Yamato, but it is decent. But all around, I would much rather see any other card instead of Raizo for my first play on turn 2. If you were to try to move some of the cards out of this main deck in order to make room for some of these tech options, I would suggest trying to remove Odin down to 3, moving Kid down to 2, or remove him completely, and you can even get Capone down to 3 if you feel like you're facing a lot of decks that are just removing your small blockers. Then you can just try to get rid of some of them as well. Cat Viper is a really good option for the early game, Killer is a pretty good substitute for X-Drake, Hawkins is still very strong, but he does get jet pistoled pretty easily. Yamato is amazing because you can play her for 4. 8-cost Kid is a pretty decent option if you still have him from your set 1 collection and you don't want to try to buy any of the Odins. Carrot as well as Beppo are both 2k counters that you can add to your deck if you feel like you need them. And Straw Sword is just a really exceptional event that has a lot of utility and you can use it in any way you want. If you wanted to add a Straw Sword, I would probably remove a Paradise Waterfall, and then with that, I would also get rid of maybe some of the 7-drops. Anyways, guys, that was it for the deck list. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I will try to get to them. Anyways, have a good one, and I'll see you next time.